Yeah. Analytics off the chain, all the channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game. I'm a headliner.
Yo, what is going on, Headliner Nation? Welcome back to the Fantasy Headliners. Kyle here to talk about the 2022 NFL Draft with my final mock draft 5.0. That is right. It is time to lock in our picks. It is officially draft week. And I want to remind you all that we are going to be live right here on YouTube on this channel for the first round of the NFL draft. So make sure that you've got us up on dual screens. Whatever you need to do, we're going to have some awesome giveaways courtesy of our friends over at Pristine Auction. We're going to be breaking down the first round of the NFL draft, of course, and talking about all the picks and just having a really, really good time on stream with all of you. So make sure that you are tuning in that night and hanging out with us for the draft. But like I said, this is it right here. This is mock draft 5.0. This is the final mock draft I'm doing this offseason, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to lock in some picks here. I've also made a couple of trades that I thought could potentially be interesting. So keep an eye on that as we kind of go through this process. But I think it's time to finally jump in. We're going to head into pick number 1 from the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm going to go ahead and pencil in Aiden Hutchinson, edge rusher out of Michigan, to them. I've really talked about really all offseason them going with Evan Neal instead, but you're going to find out in a couple of minutes why I'm going with Aiden Hutchinson over Evan Neal. But it doesn't end up being Aiden Hutchinson. In my mind, it will end up being Evan Neal at that point. The Detroit Lions at 1.02, Kayvon Thibodeaux, edge rusher out of Oregon. They get their edge rusher and get a guy to help them. There's some talk that it could be Travon Walker, but I still just feel like for some reason that it would be Thibodeaux if that is the guy that if Hutchinson is end up picking, Kayvon Thibodeaux will end up being the guy that goes at number 2. The Houston Texans get a gift. They get the number 1 offensive tackle in the draft, Evan Neal, falling down to them. Great pick for them at 1.03. New York Jets fans have been asking for it, and I'm going to give it to you, Jets fans. Jameson Williams, wide receiver out of Alabama. Over the past about 24 hours or so, there has been a lot of talk out of different outlets that there are multiple teams within the top 10 that view Jameson Williams is the type of talent that cannot be passed over. And you have to wonder if maybe the New York Jets, with 2 picks within the first 10, don't look at Jameson Williams the same way. Now, for me, I personally think that they should go either offensive tackle or edge and really work on one of those areas. But who knows? They're going to be following along the lines of maybe what the Cincinnati Bengals did when they brought in Jamar Chase and really just gave Joey Burrow a bunch of weapons, doing the same thing for Zach Wilson and hoping that helps him out. But based on some of those reports I'm hearing, now I'm thinking maybe the New York Jets, they end up going with Jameson Williams here, wide receiver out of Alabama. For the New York Giants at pick 1.05, Ikem Ekwonu is going to be a little gift that falls all the way down to them. They could go edge rusher here as well, but I feel like when a talent like Ekwonu falls to you, you go with it. The Carolina Panthers go with quarterback Kenny Pickett out of Pittsburgh. I don't love it. I think they're forced into it. And I do think the Carolina Panthers are going to go for a guy that might be a little bit safer than Malik Willis. And that is why we see them go with Kenny Pickett instead. He would be viewed as a safer option over Willis. Now, if for some reason Ikem Ekwonu were to fall another pick, then at that point, I think Ekwonu would end up going to the Carolina Panthers and they would go with the offensive tackle instead. At 1.07, the New York Giants with their second pick inside the top 10, Travon Walker, edge rusher out of Georgia. So for me, this is a big get for the New York Giants. They really bolster the top of their line, both on the defensive and offensive side, and they get themselves 2 game changers to really help, number 1, protect Danny Jones, and then number 2, get after whoever the other quarterback is on the opposing team. Great first round here for the New York Giants if they can pull this off. The Baltimore Ravens make a move and trade up to 1.08 with the Atlanta Falcons to draft Ahmed Sauce Gardner, cornerback out of Cincinnati. Baltimore making the deal with Atlanta. Atlanta thinking to themselves at this point, hey, we could move back to 1.14. Not a really big drop for us. We're going to move back, and there's still going to be a lot of talent that we could take. Let's go ahead and grab some future draft capital since we have so many places that we have to fill in. We're not falling that far. Let him go ahead and go with Sauce there, and we're going to get ourselves some opportunities to win more in the future. Since our Seattle, at 1.09, going with Derek Stingley Jr., cornerback out of LSU, my number 2 cornerback on the board. Definitely a guy that has been, I believe, overlooked a little bit this draft cycle. Some of it may have been due to the injury that he had coming into really like the pro days and the combine and everything. Just he kind of got overlooked by Gardner a little bit, but hey, Stingley is still a guy that might be the safest, most well-balanced cornerback in this draft, and the Seattle Seahawks get a big win with him there. The New York Jets, well, earlier they went with the wide receiver. Now they're going to go back to working on the line. We're going to go with edge rusher Jermaine Johnson, edge out of Florida State. His upside just a little bit higher than what you would see with like Charles Cross or Trevor Penning, who would be the next 2 offensive tackles off the board. The Washington Commanders going with Garrett Wilson, wide receiver out of Ohio State. Pairing up another wide receiver out of Ohio State with Terry McLaurin, maybe giving those two an opportunity to, work together a little bit. Maybe, keep Terry McLaurin, kind of bought into the Washington Commanders, knowing that he's going to have Garrett Wilson there with him, both Ohio State alums. Maybe that friendship there can help keep those two around for a while. Terry McLaurin, looking for some money or getting out of there, it sounds like. This could end up helping and keep the pressure off of him so he can truly do wide receiver 1 things. The Minnesota Vikings are not able to get 2 of the other top corners on the draft. They could end up going interior defensive line here. They could end up going with Kyle Hamilton as well. But for me, taking a look at it, just with what I see at the cornerback position and knowing that they're going to be in a division that's going to be slinging it a little bit more in a couple of years, grabbing a guy like Andrew Booth Jr., a cornerback that may not have the crazy upside that we see from these other cornerbacks in the draft, but a guy that we take a look at and we say, yeah, he is absolutely somebody that is going to be safe. He's going to get the job done. He's not going to look spectacular doing it, but he's going to do it, and that's all that matters in the NFL. Another trade incoming here. The Houston Texans end up trading back, and the Pittsburgh Steelers trade up to grab Malik Willis, quarterback out of Liberty, jumping up in front of the likes of the Atlanta Falcons. If they end up taking a look at him, the New Orleans Saints, maybe Philadelphia. Now, I don't think Philadelphia would draft him anyway, but, Pittsburgh could be looking at it and saying, we got to get up in front of a couple of these teams. If we're going to get Malik Willis, they make the move. They go up and they get Malik Willis, quarterback out of Liberty. He sits for a year behind Mitchell Trubisky, and then next year takes over. And maybe this team gets back to some of that high-powered offensive play that we have seen in years past. At 1.14, the Atlanta Falcons, from their trade back earlier with Baltimore, they get a nice gift-wrapped present of Kyle Hamilton, safety out of Notre Dame, falling down to them. Kyle Hamilton is my number 1 overall player in this draft. This dude is a bigger, stronger Tyrann Mathieu. He can do everything that you want him to do. Absolutely love this guy. I think he's going to be a huge game changer for an NFL team. Unfortunately, like we've heard a lot of people say, safeties are going to fall due to positional value. People don't just look at them as the same type of value as some of these other top end, like a cornerback, offensive tackle, quarterback, wide receiver, things like that. But Kyle Hamilton is a true game changer. Atlanta's trade back with Baltimore works out perfectly. The Philadelphia Eagles' first round pick is going to be Drake London, wide receiver out of USC. I do believe they go with Drake London over a couple of the other guys because he's a little bit of a bigger possession type wide receiver that can win down the field and do some things from just a game changing playing standpoint. I think they go with a guy that's a little bit bigger, knowing that they've got Devontae Smith and Jalen Reagor, who are a little, I don't want to say undersized by any means, but they're not that type of physical wide receiver that Drake London could end up being. The New Orleans Saints end up grabbing Chris Olave, wide receiver out of Ohio State. They get a guy that can go opposite of Michael Thomas and really help draw defenders down the field and stretch the field, which will be good for Jameis Winston. Los Angeles Chargers at 1.17. They grab offensive tackle Trevor Penning out of Northern Iowa. There's some people that say that all he can do is pass protect, or no, excuse me, that he can't pass protect. The only thing he can do is run block. I tell you what, Trevor Penning is going to be a guy that is going to be a beast in the NFL. He's definitely right up there as the offensive tackle number 3 for me in this draft. The Philadelphia Eagles go with cornerback Trent McDuffie. Trent McDuffie, I believe, is a guy that just continues to be overlooked in this draft. He is a first-round talent locked in for me. He's kind of a top 10 talent, obviously, honestly, in my standpoint. But when you got a guy like Stingley and Gardner above him, even Andrew Booth Jr., I think McDuffie just hasn't been talked about enough this offseason, and Philadelphia is going to enjoy having him there in an Eagles uniform. The New Orleans Saints, now that they've missed out on their quarterback, they're going to go with Charles Cross, offensive tackle out of Mississippi State. They really work on building that offense up a little bit and giving Jameis Winston a little bit more protection and another offensive weapon. The Houston Texans, after their trade down with the Pittsburgh Steelers, they go Devontae Wyatt, interior defensive lineman out of Georgia. Earlier, they got their offensive tackle, Evan Neal. Now they get a guy that can play on the interior of the defensive line, move around a little bit. He can cause some pressure. He can help stop the run. He can do a little bit of everything on that side of the defensive ball. Devin Lloyd, linebacker out of Utah, the New England Patriots. I know a lot of fans are screaming for, cornerbacks and wide receivers and top end play. Listen, if you get a guy like Devin Lloyd to play in the middle of your defense, that's a great win for you, especially considering how much improved that AFC East could be this year. The Green Bay Packers go with Treylon Burks, wide receiver out of Arkansas. Now, I went back and forth with this one a little bit because I think Jahan Dotson could also end up going to Green Bay there. But I think Burks right now just ends up going ahead of Dotson just because he seems like a guy that could just fit what they need there a little bit more. I think Dotson is a guy that is going to be very good, but he's not that alpha type of wide receiver. I think he's a little bit more like a DJ Chark, where he could be a good complementary number 2, but he's not going to be a guy that's going to be the alpha in the offense every single year. I think Treylon Burks' skill set is a little bit closer to that, and that's why they end up going with him first. The Arizona Cardinals go with George Karlaftis, edge rusher out of Purdue. Not a sexy pick, Arizona, but you got to cause pressure. You've lost a lot of guys over the last couple of years that can cause that pressure, and you are going to need that playing out in the NFC West, all right? You're going to have to be able to get after the quarterback this year. George Karlaftis is going to help you do that. Maybe not a guy that is a 3-down player every single possession right now. Maybe he does go in and out a little bit, but again, you've lost Chandler Jones. JJ Watt is just not what he used to be. You lost him last year to an injury. Can he stay healthy this year? So you need to get somebody that can cause some pressure, and Karlaftis can do that. Kenyon Green going to the Dallas Cowboys. They need to work on that offensive line, especially on the interior of it, and Kenyon Green is going to be able to help with that, giving Zeke and Tony Pollard a little bit more room to run, giving the wide receivers more time to get open, and keeping Dak Prescott off his back. The Jacksonville Jaguars make an appearance into the bottom half of the first round here, making a trade with Buffalo, coming into the 1.25 spot to get Tyler Linderbaum, interior offensive lineman out of Iowa. Now, again, Tyler Linderbaum is a guy that is considered a generational center. There is a lot of people that believe that he is a guy that is going to be one of the best centers in the league within a year. So he's going to be there and available at this part of the draft, I still believe, even though I think there are teams that could benefit having him more than some of the other positions that they're taking. But Jacksonville just lost their starting center to retirement a few weeks ago, and now they're at a point where that offensive line is even worse. But that's why I mentioned a few picks ago, hey, Aiden Hutchinson, getting a guy on the edge. You really need an offensive lineman. Get that guy, get that defensive lineman, get a true game changer on the defensive side of the ball. You're only at pick 33. You're at the very beginning of the second round. Trading up with the team at the end of the first, like Buffalo, isn't that big of that's not that big of an issue to try and get over the hump there. Buffalo sitting here at this spot, there might not be a whole lot there where they're like, oh yeah, we got to have that. That's going to be great for us. They could move back to the beginning of the second round, maybe pick up a couple of extra picks somewhere, maybe one next year, maybe one this year, and still get, maybe if they've got several guys. Listen, if you're at the back half of the first round, you have got several guys on your board that you'd be happy taking that probably have second round grades on them anyway, that now you can still get, plus you're going to pick up some extra draft collateral. And now Jacksonville gets their center and Tyler Linderbaum out of Iowa, and everybody's happy. At number 26, the Tennessee Titans go with Nakobe Dean, linebacker out of Georgia. I know that there's a lot of Tennessee fans out there that don't like the idea of taking a linebacker. You want a wide receiver. Jahan Dotson would end up being available there in this mock draft, but I still don't fully believe that they use that pick on a guy like Jahan Dotson when, honestly, with as good as the AFC is getting, you have got to have somebody that is going to help you on the defensive side of the ball, and you're going to be able to get some wide receivers a little bit deeper into this draft that could step in and help you out with AJ Brown on the other side there. The Tampa Bay Bucks, Zion Johnson, interior offensive lineman out of Boston College, coming in to help on the interior of the offensive line there after a couple of departures this past offseason. The Green Bay Packers, instead of going with another wide receiver, they actually work on the interior of the defensive line a little bit, picking up Jordan Davis out of Georgia. Yes, you already got your wide receiver in Treylon Burks. You could end up going with Dotson again, but I believe Jordan Davis is the pick here as Green Bay looks to stay balanced with that draft process. The Kansas City Chiefs at 1.29 and 1.30 go with Dax Hill, safety out of Michigan, and Jahan Dotson, wide receiver out of Penn State. Jahan Dotson coming in to kind of help with that field stretching role a little bit. Yes, they signed MVS. No, that's not the greatest signing in the world, even though I do still kind of like MVS. Jahan Dotson is a guy that can step in and help out right away. The Cincinnati Bengals need some help on the edge. They go with Boye Mafe, edge rusher out of Minnesota. He's going to come in and help out right away on the defensive line of the football. And then at 1.32 at the very end of the first round, the Detroit Lions need some help at safety. They're going to get Jaquan Brisker, safety out of Penn State, to help reinforce that defense. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. My final mock draft of the offseason has been locked into place. And there we go. We're moving forward, ladies and gentlemen. So I appreciate everybody tuning into this video. Hit that like button for me. Leave a comment down below. Let me know again, if you could have your way, if you could draft anybody in the first round for your favorite team, who would it be? And then also make sure you subscribe here if you are not a member of Headliner Nation already, and tune in on draft night, the first round, to catch us live here on YouTube. I'm going to get out of here though. Ladies and gentlemen, stay safe, stay healthy, and I will catch you all on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.